The human moved carefully through the alien jungle. Every step made a soft crunch against the thick, spongy ground. Giant trees rose above him, their leaves glowing faintly in colors he had never seen before. Strange creatures scuttled or slithered in the shadows, making the forest feel alive in ways he could not fully understand. Even though he had traveled through dangerous places on countless planets, this jungle made his heart race. It was both beautiful and threatening. He paused, listening. Somewhere in the distance, a sharp cry pierced the quiet. It was high-pitched and urgent, unlike any sound he had ever heard. He instinctively crouched lower, moving silently through the undergrowth. Then he heard it again, this time closer. The sound carried panic and fear. He followed it carefully, navigating around glowing vines that seemed to hum softly when brushed against. At last he saw her. The young alien girl was trapped between thick, thorny bushes and 3 hunters from a rival tribe. Her skin was pale with streaks of silver that shimmered even in the dim light, and her large eyes, full of terror, darted back and forth. She clutched a small knife, but it was clear she had no chance against the armed hunters. The human crouched behind a massive fern and studied the hunters. They wore lightweight armor that glinted faintly and carried energy spears that pulsed ominously. Their movements were fast and precise, but the human noticed something they had not. The uneven ground, the hanging vines, the way the sunlight barely touched certain patches of the forest. He smiled slightly to himself. Humans were not the strongest beings in the universe, but he had a skill that few others did, thinking creatively under pressure. He began gathering materials quickly, a few strong vines, some sharp stones, and a pile of sticky sap from a nearby tree. With nimble fingers, he set small traps near the hunter's path. He tied a vine to a low branch, laying it across a clearing where the hunters would likely step. He smeared sap on one of the stones and set it as bait near a loose rock, so when they approached, the rock would slide and make noise, drawing attention. Then he waited. The human had learned long ago that patience often mattered more than speed. He held his breath as the hunters moved closer. The girl crouched low, watching him silently. She didn't speak, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her wide eyes. The first hunter stepped on the vine, and it snapped, sending him sprawling. The others froze, scanning the area, but the human was already moving again. He threw a small rock at a distant tree, making it crash loudly. The hunters jumped, distracted. He whispered to the girl, "Follow me quietly." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded and moved with surprising grace. They slipped through narrow paths, winding around giant roots and dodging the hunter's search. The human noticed a shallow stream ahead and led her there. The hunters were still in pursuit, but their movements were less coordinated now. The human whispered, "We need to cross the stream. Stay low." He found a narrow fallen tree and gestured for the girl to balance across it. She did so carefully, and he followed, keeping his balance by feeling the bark under his feet. Once they reached the other side, the human led her into a dense grove filled with glowing mushrooms. The light was soft and calming, and the girl finally relaxed a little. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He smiled and shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "We're not safe until we get out of their reach." They rested for a few moments. The girl told him her name was Lyra. She was from a small, isolated tribe that valued strength and speed above all else. Her people believed outsiders were dangerous even if they meant no harm. She had been captured while gathering food near the border of her territory, and the hunters were taking her back to their village. If they succeeded, she would have faced punishment, or worse. The human listened carefully. He could see the fear in her eyes, but also determination. Lyra was not a weakling. She was resourceful, fast, and smart. He admired her courage, though he kept his thoughts to himself. "We need a plan to get you home safely," he said quietly. "And we need to move before they find us." They started moving again. The human led her through hidden trails using his knowledge of terrain and observation. He noticed the tracks of the hunters, the broken branches, the faint glimmer of their armor. He whispered instructions to Lyra, teaching her how to move silently, how to avoid leaving signs behind. She followed closely, learning quickly. At one point, they had to cross a small clearing. The human spotted a large predator, a giant insect with glowing wings circling above. Lyra froze. "Move slowly," he whispered. "Don't make sudden movements." They crept along the edge of the clearing, hiding behind rocks and large plants. The predator passed without noticing them. The human breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Night began to fall. The forest changed under the dim light, becoming harder to navigate. Bioluminescent plants glowed more brightly, and the sounds of nocturnal creatures filled the air. They needed shelter. The humans spotted a hollowed-out tree trunk nearby. It was just large enough for the two of them to hide. Inside they could rest, though cautiously. Lyra finally spoke more openly. She asked the human why he was alone. He hesitated, then decided honesty was safer than lies. "I'm an exile," he said. "I was sent away from my home world. I travel, survive, and learn. I'm used to being alone." Lyra tilted her head. "But you risked yourself for me," she said softly. "You didn't have to." The human shrugged, trying to make light of it. "Sometimes helping someone is just the right thing to do. Besides, I like to see if I can outsmart trouble." He smiled faintly, though there was a shadow behind it. He had seen enough betrayal and fear in his life to know how fragile trust could be. Yet here, in this alien forest, helping someone gave him a strange warmth he had not felt in years. They stayed in the hollow tree for the night. The sounds of the jungle never ceased, but the human had taught Lyra how to stay alert while conserving energy. He found a small trickle of water nearby and gathered some edible plants. They ate quietly, sharing the little resources they had. The next morning, the forest was alive with light. Birds with translucent wings called out from the trees, and mist rose from the ground in soft clouds. The human was already moving, scouting the area. Lyra followed closely, now more confident and alert. Suddenly, she stopped and pointed. In the distance, the sound of heavy footsteps approached. The human froze. "What is it?" he whispered. Lyra's eyes widened. "It's her," she said. "The fiercest warrior of my tribe. She protects me, and she never forgives easily." The human scanned the area. A tall, imposing figure was moving through the trees. Her armor shimmered with alien alloys, and she carried a long, curved blade that gleamed in the sunlight. Every step she took made the ground tremble slightly. Lyra's body tensed, but she did not step back. The human realized the situation had changed. This was no longer just about escaping hunters. This warrior was a legend among her people, known for her unmatched skill and strict sense of justice. The human could feel the weight of her presence even from a distance. He instinctively knew that anything he did now would determine whether he earned her respect or her wrath. He crouched beside Lyra, whispering, "Stay calm. Let's see what she does first." Lyra nodded, her eyes never leaving the approaching warrior. The human studied the warrior's movements carefully, noting the precision in her steps, the way her eyes scanned the surroundings, and the subtle tension in her posture. She was powerful, but she was also cautious. When she reached the grove, she stopped, her eyes locked on the human. For a moment, the jungle seemed to hold its breath. Lyra stepped slightly forward, signaling to the warrior. The human could see recognition flash in the warrior's eyes, followed by suspicion. The human remained still, raising his hand slightly in a gesture of peace. He knew words might not matter. Actions would. The warrior circled them slowly, assessing. Every muscle in her body seemed ready to spring into action, yet she did not attack. Lyra watched nervously, unsure whether to trust the human or obey her protector instinctively. Finally, the warrior spoke, her voice low and commanding. "Why is he here?" Her eyes were sharp, demanding truth. Lyra gestured toward the human. "He saved me," she said simply. "He helped me escape the hunters." The warrior's eyes narrowed, studying the human. The jungle seemed silent again as she considered. The human realized that this was only the beginning. To survive, he would need more than skill and luck. He would need to prove himself. And in a forest where strength and cunning were everything, he knew humans had one advantage that few others did: the ability to think in ways no one expected. As the warrior approached, the human took a deep breath, ready for whatever test awaited him. The sun rose higher, casting light across the glowing plants, and the jungle seemed to watch silently, waiting to see what the human would do next. He had saved the girl, but now he had to survive the judgment of her people's fiercest warrior, and he knew that failing was not an option. The warrior moved closer, her steps deliberate and heavy on the jungle floor. Every movement radiated strength and precision. She was taller and broader than the human, yet there was a grace to her motions, as if every step had been practiced 1,000 times. Her eyes never left him, sharp and calculating, measuring his resolve. The human remained calm, though his heart beat faster. He could feel Lyra standing slightly behind him, her small hand brushing his arm in silent encouragement. He knew that in moments like this, hesitation could be dangerous. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. "Why are you with her?" the warrior asked, her voice low but commanding. It carried the weight of authority, and even the creatures of the jungle seemed to pause at her tone. The human raised his hand slightly in a gesture of peace. "I saved her," he said calmly. "Hunters were after her, and I helped her escape. That is all." The warrior's eyes narrowed. She took a step closer, circling him slowly. Her blade, though she did not draw it, glinted faintly in the filtered sunlight. "Many outsiders claim to help," she said, "but their motives are often false. You could have trapped her, harmed her, or worse." The human nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I know what outsiders like me are assumed to be," he replied. "But my actions speak louder than any claim. I risked myself to protect her. That is all." The warrior paused, studying him carefully. Her eyes were sharp, as if she could see past his words and into the very core of his intentions. Then, without warning, she moved closer and thrust her blade into the ground. The tip sank into the soft earth with a sharp hiss. She stepped back, pointing at the human with one finger. "If your intentions are true, you will survive my test." The human tensed but did not flinch. "I am ready," he said simply. The warrior nodded once. "Follow me," she commanded. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "Be careful," she whispered. The human nodded, then followed the warrior through the dense jungle. They moved in silence at first, the human studying every step the warrior took. She led them to a clearing where the ground was uneven and covered with jagged rocks and deep pits. "This is your test," she said. "You must navigate this area, reach the other side, and prove your skill, courage, and intelligence. Fail, and you will show that you are unworthy of trust." The human took a deep breath, scanning the clearing. It was treacherous, but he noticed subtle clues that the warrior had left. Stones arranged slightly off balance, faint marks in the dirt, and branches that could be used as levers or supports. Humans were not always the strongest, but the ability to analyze and improvise quickly had saved his life countless times. He moved carefully, step by step, avoiding traps the warrior had left. At one point, a branch snapped under his foot, but he recovered quickly, using the momentum to swing across a narrow pit. Lyra watched from a safe distance, impressed at his focus and precision. Halfway through, the warrior spoke. "Most would panic here," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "But you remain steady. Humans are strange, unpredictable in ways that can be dangerous or useful." The human did not respond verbally. He simply adjusted his path, using vines to steady himself over a particularly wide gap. When he reached a fallen log, he rolled and jumped, landing lightly on the other side. He could hear the warrior's footsteps following him, silent but powerful. Suddenly, from the shadows, a group of hunters emerged, the same ones who had chased Lyra the day before. They had tracked them through the jungle, likely hoping to claim the girl again. The human froze for a moment, realizing that his test had become a real challenge. The warrior stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Do not move unless I signal," she said to the human. Then, with a swift motion, she leapt forward, her blade slicing the air. The hunters, unprepared for her speed, stumbled and fell back. The human quickly assessed the situation. There were 4 hunters, armed and dangerous, but they were no match for the warrior's skill. He picked up a fallen branch, using it to disarm one hunter who tried to attack from behind. Another hunter lunged with a spear, but the human sidestepped and pushed him into a shallow pit. His movements were precise, calculated, showing that humans could combine thought and action in ways many species underestimated. Lyra watched, her admiration growing. The human, whom she had first seen as fragile and alone, was now standing shoulder to shoulder with the fiercest warrior of her people. He was not using brute strength alone. He was using creativity, awareness, and courage, qualities that were often overlooked but lethal when combined. The warrior glanced at him briefly and nodded, acknowledging his skill. Then she turned back to the hunters. With swift, coordinated movements, she disarmed and incapacitated them one by one. The human assisted when needed, using his ingenuity to block attacks and redirect the hunter's momentum. Together, they were unstoppable. When the last hunter fell, the warrior finally lowered her blade. She turned to the human, her eyes sharp but now carrying a hint of respect. "You have proven yourself," she said. "Not many outsiders would have survived this trial. Not many would have thought and acted as you did. The human relaxed slightly, though he remained alert. Thank you, he said quietly. I did what I had to do. The warrior looked at Lyra, who had stepped forward with a mixture of relief and pride. He saved you, she said, her voice softer than before. And he has proven his worth. He is no ordinary outsider. Lyra smiled at him. I knew you were different, she said. I could see it when you saved me yesterday. The warrior studied him for a long moment, then nodded. He may stay, she said finally. But know this, trust is earned, not given. You will need to continue proving yourself. The human nodded, understanding. I understand, he said. And I will. The warrior motioned for Lyra to follow her. Come, she said. We must return to the tribe. Your people will want to know what happened. The human followed, careful to match her pace. As they moved through the jungle, he could feel a sense of connection forming, not just with Lyra, but with the warrior and her world. He had come to this planet as a lone traveler, but now he was part of something bigger. Humans were adaptable, capable of courage, and able to think in ways that few other species could. When they reached the outskirts of Lyra's village, the warrior stopped. She looked at the human, her eyes serious. Remember, she said, this tribe respects strength and cunning. You have both, but do not grow complacent. Respect must be maintained through action. The human bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he had learned from other cultures. I will remember, he said. Lyra ran ahead to greet her people who had gathered near the village center. Their eyes widened as they saw her safe and unharmed, and then they noticed the human and the warrior. Murmurs of surprise and curiosity spread through the crowd. Humans were rare here, and to see one standing confidently beside the fiercest warrior was astonishing. The warrior introduced him simply. He saved her, she said, and he has proven his skill. He is not your enemy. The villagers studied him closely. Some were wary, some impressed, and others curious. But the warrior's presence commanded respect. If she accepted him, then they would consider him worthy. The human stepped forward and bowed slightly to the tribe, keeping his hands visible to show he carried no weapons. I only wish to help, he said calmly. I mean no harm. A few villagers stepped closer, examining him. Then slowly they nodded. Their wariness softened as they realized he had saved Lyra without seeking reward, and that his courage and intelligence had been undeniable. Lyra ran back to him, her face bright with gratitude. Thank you, she said. You saved me and you passed the warrior's test. I knew humans were strong, but you are extraordinary. The human smiled faintly, feeling a warmth he had not experienced in a long time. I did what I had to do, he said. And I learned that strength is not only about fighting, it's about thinking, observing, and never giving up. The warrior watched silently, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice carrying authority and respect. You will stay with us for now. Learn our ways, share your skills, and continue to prove yourself. Humans are unpredictable, but sometimes that unpredictability is invaluable. The human nodded, understanding that this was not the end, but a beginning. He had found a purpose, respect, and connection on this alien world. His ingenuity, courage, and calm under pressure had earned him a place among beings who were powerful, proud, and skilled. And for the first time in a long while, he did not feel alone. The sun set over the village, casting long shadows across the glowing jungle. Lyra stayed close to him, and the warrior walked ahead, her figure tall and imposing against the vibrant horizon. The human took a deep breath, looking around at this strange, beautiful world. He had faced danger, proven his worth, and found allies. In that moment, he realized something simple but profound. Humans might not always be the strongest, but their courage, ingenuity, and perseverance could shape destinies, even in worlds far beyond their own. And here, on this alien planet, he had become part of a story larger than himself, one that would be told and remembered for generations. He smiled faintly, feeling a sense of belonging he had never known before. The jungle was still alive with sounds glowing softly in the twilight, but now it felt welcoming rather than threatening.